And welcome to Paul's CNC Creations. Today I'm going to show you how to create a 3D relief using the bitmap feature. So once you've opened Carve Code Maker or Carve Code Maker Plus, you come over to bitmaps, left click, right click, import. Select the relief you want to choose. You want it to fit the page and then click open. This has now imported the picture onto the screen. Now as you can see, this is flat. So what you can do in Maker and Maker Plus is you can double click on the bitmap, click on this menu here, and this will open this box here. You then want to click on this, create relief layers. As you can see, this has turned the page into a horrible mess. But if you drag this arrow down, it'll slowly bring it back to what you want it to. So that's a little bit more realistic. Now if we tilt the page and use this arrow, you can see that we can adjust the image. And this is what effectively creates a 3D relief. So I find that between 5 and 10 millimeters works pretty well. Okay, so zoom in a little bit using the scroll mouse. Okay. And at the moment it looks pretty damn weird, if I may say so. But there's a couple of things we can do to make this look absolutely perfect. So first things we want to do, we want to change this from a vector to a relief. So if you come down to this yellow box here, it'll change it. So Amara, as our champion, in a few moments, they'll ask you to check on Campion's machine. Now this one's a little bit bigger, but so much better than all the others. Just get this one out. So now, if you can notice that in this picture, this here is hay and is raised. If you look at the horses' faces, they're not raised. I like to call it convex and concave. So the horses at the moment are concaved, so they're going inwards and not outwards. So obviously a horse's face isn't concaved, it's convex. So it's like a balloon, it's blown up. So one thing we can do, we can apply this, re-enter the amount we want. So I'm going to use 5mm for now. Press apply again. So that will adjust it down slightly. So it kind of looks okay, but it's too flat for my liking. So what I can then do, close this window, come up to this icon here, invert relief Z only, click on it, and it will invert the picture. Now you can see that the horse's faces are convexed like a balloon, and the hay is not quite concave because it's not a circular surface, but it is flat. Okay. And that is the start point or the basics of a 3D relief. Now, if you were to create a toolpath on this, it's going to be very grainy, and the toolpath will literally follow and create all these little spikes, and it won't look very good. So the way we get around that is we use the smooth relief feature. So click on this, come over to here. As it's the whole picture we want to do, we'll keep it to whole relief, and then we can use this bar here to change the smoothness. So I'll just go from 0 to 100 to show you the difference. Give it a couple of seconds to load the file. We'll zoom out and you can see that it's a lot better. However, we have lost a little bit of detail and it's a little bit too smooth for my liking. So what we can do, we can reduce this bar or change the number. So let's go 50%, let it load, and that will give you a little bit of rough and a little bit of smooth. Now again, that looks pretty good to me. So we're going to apply that. And now we can set up our toolpaths. So what we're going to do, you can either go up to this icon here, or you can click on toolpaths, scroll down to this icon here, and we're going to click or select 3D toolpaths because we want to make a 3D relief. So we'll click on that. This will open up our menu. So again, we want the whole relief, so we stay at whole relief. The finishing options, I'm going to use a 0.5mm tapered nose bit with a 6mm shank. So we select that. Now the settings are already been inputted, and I generally keep the same settings for each relief carving. So we'll click select. Now we will just go in and check that the settings are correct. So I got a 0.1 step over in millimeters. I have a 0.1 step down in millimeters, and the feed rate is 3000 millimeters a minute, and the plunge rate is also 3000 millimeters a minute. I set the spindle speed at 18,000 RPM. However, I do use the DeWalt trim router, which has different settings, but generally it doesn't matter on this occasion. So we want to use the raster cut, and we're going to keep these tolerances the same. Then we're going to select the rough option and scroll down. We're going to click the 6mm end mill, which is just a standard 6mm end mill. Now you can use a corn cob, or you can use a flat end mill. Doesn't really matter, as long as it's 6mm. So we select that, and I like to use the offset feature. The offset feature is where it'll start in the middle, it'll carve out in the middle, and it'll work its way out. Okay, we're going to leave the tolerances as they are. Just click to make sure that these are okay. So the step over is 3.6 millimeters. The step down is 1 millimeters. The feed rate is 3000 and the plunge rate is 1500. Now this is because when the bit goes down into the wood, I don't want it to be as aggressive. So we just reduce that to half of the feed rate, and it'll save the life and wear and tear of the bit. Now, depending on how good your machine is, you can change your step down. I do 2mm every now and again, but I prefer the 1mm as it extends the life of the tool and it leaves a cleaner finish on the rough pass. When I've used 2mm in the past, it can rip chunks out of the wood where you don't want it to. So that's just my opinion. Obviously, if I was carving a box, for instance, then I would change that to 2, maybe 3mm, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because we want to get rid of all that material. So we're going to have it to start inside. We're going to cut in both directions, and again we're going to leave the tolerances and allowances as they are. We don't want Z slices. I don't want lead-in moves. My safe Z is 1mm and my home point is 1mm above 0. We just click the material size. So for this piece I'll use a 40mm thick piece of wood. So the relief will be just over 5mm, leaving me 35mm in the background, which is plenty. They do advise not to carve more than a quarter of the thickness of your material. So for a 40mm thickness, ideally you do not want to carve more than 10mm, because you will find the material will warp and bow. However, the material can still warp and bow even using less thickness, if that makes sense. Okay, so now we've set up our toolpaths. We've selected the thickness. You could either name this yourself, or the computer will just make its own name up. So we'll calculate now. I will just wait for the process to calculate. I'll come back once that's done. Okay, so now that's loaded. You can see here that the toolpaths have completed and they've just shown up here in red. If I come over to toolpaths and left click on that, it'll open the machine relief toolpath. If I open that again, sorry, bear with me. If you left click on this icon here, it will open both toolpaths. Then if I click on the light bulb, you can see it's turned off the finish pass. And then if I click this light bulb, it turns off the rough pass. Now what you can do is we can simulate this relief, and we can see how well this will look. So I will close this. We will scroll here, and then you can either have this option where you can watch it create the relief, or you can click this option and it'll automatically do it for you, and it takes a couple of seconds. So for this video we're going to click this one. Now Maker Plus gives you different options. Don't worry about that, just click simulate. If you're using Maker, then you'll only have simulate option anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But in Maker Plus you can select the different levels and the different amounts of details that you want it to show. We'll just keep it as standard. We'll hit simulate, and there we are, job done. Now, what Carveco have introduced quite recently on the most recent update, as they have added hundreds, if not thousands, of materials that you can use to make this look exactly how it should look. So we're going to scroll down. Sorry, we're going to click on simulation. Wait for it to load. We're going to come down here, and it says where it says simulation detail. That is this part here, which is grey. If you click on it, scroll down. There's hundreds of options. Now I tend to use oak, beech or ash as my material, and I've noticed that ash is not on here. However, we will go to oak, and we want medium oak. Now you might be asking, what's the difference between V and H? Well, that's quite simple. H is horizontal, so you've got the grain going left to right horizontally, or V for vertical, where the grain is going up and down. So you've got that choice there, which makes a bit of difference. Now my materials generally, the grain goes horizontal, so click that, and my material generally is about a medium oak. Now that to me looks pretty good. This is an actual piece I have made for a customer. I've shown them this and they are absolutely delighted, and they have asked me to go ahead with this design. The design does change slightly, where I've added an outside border and the horses' names are written below the hay. But that's for another video. Well, I hope this video makes sense. I hope that you can learn from it, and I hope that I haven't gone too fast for you guys to keep up. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.